All right, let's have a quick talk right now. We all heard about the financing of the United States through Chinese, not entities, but properties and so forth through their banks and stuff. But I hate to tell you, Trump, you screwed up. Some of that paperwork you signed actually did one particular thing which made me so very happy. Um, Soviets, you now have a problem with. Well, that's just too bad because we're no longer, in certain senses, um, responsible. If you bomb a country, the United States is actually responsible for itself. No questions asked. So, with that being said, is unless China goes in and starts tearing apart the Constitution, they're going to find out that it can be a little harder to get out around certain things. And when I say certain things, it means that the United States no longer owns itself. So, with that being said and everything, now the few little quirks that they have to abide to is Soviets still on the internet. The wiring, the power, the utility, the lights, telephones, and communications. They also have proceeding rights to intelligence. So that means, in a nice way of saying, that they're allowed to actually spy on the United States. Well, the United States signed that paperwork. So with all that being said, the United States is no more USA, as it actually has to be renamed. It still has access to upper trials and whatnot, but it doesn't have access to making its own decisions. So technically, by written law, unless China steps in and does what it's supposed to do, because now the debtor line has switched, and what the Soviets did was, instead of handing them $1 trillion, hopefully they didn't do this, instead of handing them the amount of money they wanted, they simply just took the loan and the cash of the loan and evaluated only that of the credit line, but the credit line is through China, not through the Soviets. So if you're not understanding what I'm saying is that the Soviets may have said, okay, well, from A to Z, in a standard way, they wouldn't be able to pay for that. And that's what the response was. On non-standard A to Z, which would be to put it down as a few $1 zillion and whatnot, which they went to $1 billion of money that China is responsible for collecting payment. As the Soviets took their money, which was stolen from them, and the money that for the past amount payments of due interest and so forth and penalties, and in a nice way just kind of zeroed that certain ones out. They still owe for certain things, but at the same time they're not owing as much. But as far as the sense of China, well, we get to see how big China really is and how much they like to run their mouths, because now you're responsible for the United States, South America, except Canada. Canada is still an EU country in the sense of Europe, but it's not a UK country. The United States is no longer any of EU or UK statuses or UN statuses. So technically, if South America started up its Cuban Missile Crisis, it could bomb the crap out of the United States before they'd wake up to get their underwear on to go to war. With that being said, there is no allowance of a letter needed to go to war. Iran could bomb the USA and no one could say a damn thing about it because of the fact of the implementation of war in that of Africa, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now Syria. Therefore, there is no, oh, we need to send you a letter to go do this. Nope. You can send actually about 20,000 aircraft bomb the United States and walk away without having to say anything. With that response to the United States, you left yourself wide open for any type of attack, from online attacks to civil attacks to criminal attacks and so forth, and such that your country is no longer the USA. So get that out of your mind, as it's in the process of changing the country's name. It's no longer a French country as well. So the French, in some senses, are going to find themselves leaving this country, as well as the Spanish. In that sense of the term, to keep in Spain in good standards with the French, mainly, and the Germans, it's required that Spain not bring lofty numbers here of people. If they do, then you're more likely going to see another world war. With all that being said and whatnot, we'll see how well China steps up, because now China has provocation and to provincials to actually come to this country in the sense of government and whatnot. They don't have the rights to the country yet, which is still the Soviets or the upper overseers have the rights to tell China one thing, is whether you can or cannot go to war. Right now, because of the ongoing problem, the United States should learn to shut its mouth and get rid of its representatives, Senate, and Congress, and actually just start over. You didn't start over in 1970 to 1960, 1980 with written consent that you needed to start over. With the consent of what I'm talking about is the United States said it would submit to the fact of another government coming in and handling all the Treasury, the IRS, the investigations, Homeland Security, and that of their smaller provincials where they technically just sort through the population to see who's honest, who's not, who's going to lie the rear end off as a cop, police, state trooper, a Mountie, whoever, in that sense, and then just not employ them. With that, the reduction of 80% of your economy has happened. We took 80% of your economy in lieu of payment, which in some senses really wasn't your economy, since it all came from overseas. Therefore, all we did was regain, in that of the EU, UK, and the Soviets, what was temporarily left to go overseas for work. Well, there was no work. They had it, just like the colony ideas of having to start over and survive. It is very much like that for a lot of different companies. GE is actually one of the ones that kind of got a handout, so they had a little bit more of an easy time. With that, a lot of manufacturers, industries, and companies are being recalled back to country in the EU, French, and other countries of the Soviets for the particular reason of loss of income, in the sense of that they put too much in one place. They knew that from the start, so they called in the overseers to come in and do their job and remove such of the industry legally and so forth. Sears, Kmart, and all of them are being one of them, being a manufacturer store. So the New York State Court, you have no right to actually bankrupt or put them through bankruptcy procedures. So you want to get into a fight with another country. You wanted to technically in 1940 and 1960, but 1940 was too early since it was still proceeding to World War in 1970, which it still was told to the New York courts of bankruptcy to back off. If you're not going to let them out of the country, then they owe nothing by legal standards of international law. So with that being said, it's going to be kind of a heyday on New York State and its taxes and the IRS and the Treasury of such that it has. If it removed it, then, well, you're going to be another bankrupt state on the list on a piece of paper. So have a good day.